Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is you're watching us. Today we are joined by a cross-cutting, multi-sector panel of experts. The topic of today is sandalwood and its trafficking. We're going to be delving into the inroads of trying to understand what sandalwood is, why it's an important species, why it has been marked as a category 2 CITES species in the country or in the region. And we're going to be trying to understand why is sandalwood so important? Why are people going through so much trouble to break the law to traffic sandalwood? We are joined by people from across the divide. We have people from northern Uganda. We have people from Rwanda. We have people in Kenya. We have people representing organizations and stakeholders in the climate action and forestry space joined here with us today so that we can begin to understand the intricacies that are associated with sandalwood. I want to very quickly introduce myself and allow my co-moderator to introduce herself as well, and then we can jump to the program. So my name is Robin Omeka. I will be helping Mercy to moderate this discussion. And Mercy, how are you doing this morning?
Hello, Robin, and hi, everyone. Good to see you all today. Hi, everyone, and hello, Robin. Good to see you all today. I'm so happy to be part of this discussion and to co-moderate with Robin. And so I believe without taking much time, I'd welcome you all to today's discussion. Let us engage, and at the end of it, we'll be able to come up with a better way going forward. So back to you, Robin.
Thank you so much, Mercy Chesan. So today's discussion, as I'd mentioned earlier on in the few minutes when we began, is bringing together a number of stakeholders. In this meeting, we have people representing KEFRI, that's the Kenya Forestry Research Institute. We have people representing the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, specifically under the auspices of the Resilience Fund. We have people representing organizations in South Sudan that are doing immense work in building the awareness again on climate action. With us here today, we have somebody from the South Sudan Environmental Advocates. We also have a number of people from KEFRI, as I have mentioned. We have researchers, we have people from ENACT, policy fellows. We will be introducing them in the next few minutes. But right now, I'd like Mercy to introduce the first person who is going to be giving us a keynote opening speech. Mercy, over to you.
For our first opening, I'd like to welcome Ms. Joyce Kimani, who is the East African Regional Coordinator for Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime under the Resilient Fund program. And so please welcome Ms. Joyce. Take us through the short introduction. Joyce, hi.
Sorry, I was talking, but I was on mute. Thank you so much for this. Could I request Andati to please place my presentation online? Thank you, Andati. So my name is Joyce Kimani. Just a minute. My name is Joyce Kimani. I'm the regional coordinator for the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. We're based in Nairobi. Basically, I I look at the East African countries, Eastern Horn of Africa countries, and next slide, please. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of background of what GITOC is and how we come in handy in the Sandalwood project in partnership with Unganisha. So a brief description, GITOC, GTOC is a network of 500 prominent law enforcement, governance and development practitioners who are dedicated to improving evidence-based and seeking new and innovative strategies and resources to organized crime. And they were launched in 2013. Our headquarters in Geneva, but we have other observatory offices in Malta, Cape Town, Vienna, and the latest being Nairobi, and the latest being West Africa. So I hold the Nairobi office, and then our aim is to build an international platform for promoting debate across sectors and creating building blocks of a global strategy to counter organized crime. And then why we're interested in this, because there are a lot of crimes that form under the GITOC purview. For example, we look into drug trafficking, illicit financial flows, mafia-style groups, cybercrime, environmental organized crime, which is the reason why we are here. And most of these crimes are interlinked, and so our approach is providing a holistic approach to analyzing and addressing organized crime. So how we do it is we commission researches, we share these researches globally, and we commission also reports and tools that enable organizations who are keen on fighting organized crime to unite and come up with better mitigation strategies to fight the OCs. We work a lot with the public and private sectors. For example, this project by Unganisha is one of the projects where we've joined in the private sector. And then one of these key programs is the Resilience Fund, under which this discussion on Sandalwood falls. So it builds on ongoing work in incubating resilience in communities harmed and threatened by criminal governance. This means that we target resilience, we target organizations that are working towards creating resilience in different areas in Africa and in the world that are already being threatened by criminal governance. Next slide, please. So, like we mentioned, the Resilience Fund was established by GTOC with support from the government of Norway. And then it, like I mentioned, also it incubates a community resilience initiative like the one being run by Unganisha Cultures in the faces of organized crime. So we support individuals and groups, and they are the first responders to organized crime and violence. For example, Unganisha in this case is the first one to support organized crime in the environmental sector in Kenya. In Kenya and East Africa. And so we help in creating community cohesion and call attention to injustice and exploitation. Our fund aims to put the weight of the international communities behind individual and collective efforts. Being a global organization, we believe that we would help this young and growing community collective efforts, and then they can be held accountable. They can report and be held accountable to international community. The fund has been specifically designed to serve as an incubator. So whether it's to provide services, to promote safety, to raise awareness, or to change attitudes, or to support innovations that we may not have identified, this fund supports those initiatives that allow actors and organizations to benefit from a range of financial and capacity support. But ultimately, we work to ensure that there's a long-term sustainability of these small organizations on the grassroots levels. Next slide, please. So in 2019, we announced the Resilience Fund Fellowship, and it's an initiative that is aimed at building a platform for sectoral, global, and interdisciplinary collaboration to counter the effects of organized crime. We've had one of our beneficiaries here. She's called Judy Kaberia. I think she will join in. She has joined in. And so each year, the fellowship will have chosen a theme focusing on global issues and around which fellows collaborate. For example, we've had missing voices where we trace people who have disappeared without a trace. We've had different themes along organized crime. And then these fellows collaborate to find new perspectives and responses drawn from their diverse but shared experience in the fight against organized crime. And then the fellows combine various perspectives on these themes by developing collaborative as well as individual outfits. They will fulfill the role of the Resilience Fund ambassadors for raising awareness of organized crime and the importance of the civil society in countering it. So each year, these fellows are diverse in terms of their background. We have people from Asia, from Africa, from all over the world. And then they are based where they're based geographically and their approaches to the issues, for example. So they come up together and then they comprise of artists, journalists, community organizers, and all counter-crime activists. All of them are interested in fighting organized crime. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I think so why Sandalwood? Our main interest in Sandalwood and in partnership with Unganisha Cultures is because like any other organized crime, Sandalwood trafficking continue to attract groups. We've seen a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of chain, and we've seen a lot of criminal organizations involved in trafficking of sandalwood. We've seen people who are key in government, in some governments, and we've seen people who are businessmen, politicians, and the middlemen. We've seen a lot of chain reaction into sandalwood trafficking. And despite there being a presidential decree and their sandalwood being protected by CITES, its exploitation continues to rise to an extent that we feel like if it's not well protected, like Robin said, we are going to face extinction in the near future. Our investigations show that sandalwood is really available. For example, just yesterday I went online and I asked, where can I get sandalwood in Kenya? And we could see even online, there were so many platforms which were offering to sell the oil, and it's quite pricey. For example, we saw that a 10 milliliter oil cost about 750 shillings. And so we also noticed that the existing factories that continue to extract and deplete sandalwood in Tanzania, in Uganda, and we haven't confirmed. We feel like, just like any other organized crime, sandalwood trafficking attracts tax evasion, corruption, violent crime, fraud, and money laundering, which in essence is part of really bad system in organized crime. And so having this discussion, we felt it is important to bring different stakeholders from different platforms so that we can have a discussion on how we are going to protect these endangered species, and basically talking about what we can do to protect it, number one, and number two, what we can do to help propagate it. How are we going to make sure that our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren do not hear of a story that there was one sandalwood in East Africa? This is a discussion that is ripe. We have a panel of experts, and we have very key people who know how to handle this, and I can't wait to see how this goes. Karibuni sana, and thank you for joining the webinar. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you so much, Joyce Kimani, for that apt introduction and explanation, so that now I believe all of us are understanding what the global initiative against transnational organized crime is about and why we feel it's important for us to have this discussion. And to very quickly invite Gooks. We've been hearing Joyce talk about Unganisha cultures. We've been hearing this is an Unganisha cultures project. But then how many of us really know what Unganisha cultures is? And who else better to tell us what Unganisha cultures is than the CEO himself? Ngugi Mwangi, please, the floor is yours.
My
So,
All right. Sorry for that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ngugi Mwangi Wairimo. I'm so glad to be here. I'm the director for Unganisha Cultures, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone who has joined us. I'll just do a brief introduction about Unganisha Cultures, who we are, and what Unganisha is all about. So Unganisha is an art-based organization that focuses on promoting, focuses on environmental crime, culture, and art across the East African region. And we've been engaged in a couple of advocacy campaigns, from tree planting to rehabilitations of different projects. We had a project at a place called Ondiri Swamp. It's the second deepest underground lake in East Africa. We did an advocacy about it. We got to engage more than 80 artists across the region on tree planting exercises. And through concerts, drum cafes, and flash mobs, we just use our art to advocate against environmental crime. And the stakeholders' engagement on transnational flora and fauna crimes in the region. We usually hold a 2-day annual cultural festival dubbed Unganisha Festival. And the first edition, it was at the National Museums of Kenya, which we just wanted to bring different stakeholders and key environmental players in East and Central Africa. So this project about end sandalwood trafficking in East Africa, it came as about us having a research about it, and we got to understand that sandalwood has been exploited for over 5,000 years, and many of the natural populations of these species are now classified as vulnerable to extinction. The species was consequently protected under the presidential ban for a period of 5 years, with the effect starting from 2007 all the way to 2013. But still, sandalwood is being still over-harvested, and it needs a lot of protection. So sandalwood seedlings, they can be raised through seeds, air layering, and cuttings. The most effective methods of raising a large quantity of seedlings at the moment is through the seedlings and the air layering. Next slide, please. About our approach in terms of how we want to do this project. We want to do it in 3 different ways. One, which I think we are already on it, is the advocacy. It's the advocacy phase, where we get to talk more about the policies, the existing policies that we have in Kenya, across East Africa, talk about the propagation. In propagation, you talk about how do we get to teach our farmers on the best ways to grow the sandalwood, and also having a conversation around sustainable ways of growing it. And then the last part will be now the distribution. The distribution will be now in terms of talking about how do we, because most of the people that are engaged in growing the sandalwood, most of them do it in form because of the money and stuff. So we also want to talk about the economical aspect that sandalwood has to offer. Thank you so much for taking part in this conversation. And without further ado, I would want to hand it over back to Robin. And thank you so much for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngugi Mwangi, for that presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, we're only scratching the surface with the cadre of people that we have here. If you take a close look at the comment section in our chat box, you will understand that we are cutting across a great collection of people amalgamated here to have this discussion with us. And I don't want to talk too much, but I want to throw the floor back to Mercy Chesan to help us dive into the conversation that has brought us here today. Mercy.
Thanks, Robin. I think we've had such a beautiful introduction to today's topic from Joyce, Kimani, and Gu. I think important to highlight is that we have a really broad network here, and going forward to this discussion, we'll be able to really get a great response to how to approach these things. And so diving into the discussion, I would like to welcome our first speaker, that is Mr. Willis Okumu from Enact Africa. Hi, Willis.
Yes, hi, Mercy.
Yeah, and so just to start off this discussion, I'd like to welcome you to give us like a really brief profile of yourself, an overview, and also onto our first question. I'd like you to take us through the existing policies that are prohibiting the trafficking of sandalwood in East Africa. So over to you, Willis.
So thank you so much, Mercy. My name is Willis Okumu. I work at the Institute for Security Studies, which is a Pan-African research organization with offices across the continent. At the Institute of Security Studies, we have a program called the ENACT program. ENACT program means Enhancing Africa's Response to Transnational Organized Crime. I am based in Nairobi. I work in the Nairobi office and I work there as a senior researcher. So that's basically about me. In terms of policies that have been enacted in this country to tackle issues of sandalwood trafficking, as early as 2005, there were a lot of concerns by the government of Kenya in regards to over exploitation of the sandalwood tree. So sandalwood tree exploitation started mostly from the parks in places like Tsavo. And out of that, in 2007, the government of Kenya actually gave out a presidential ban by President Mike Kibaki to stop harvesting of sandalwood for a period of 5 years. Of course, this did not in any way stem the harvesting, as Joyce mentioned earlier. But there have been policies enacted by the Kenya Wildlife Services, I think in 2013, that also indicated that sandalwood is indeed an endangered species. Sandalwood in Eastern Africa has also been listed in Appendix 2 of the CITES because of the increased exploitation, with not only in Kenya, but within the region. So, but what I can really point out is that despite all the legal frameworks that we have, it seems that we have not really succeeded in preventing the exploitation of sandalwood in this country. A case in point that I can mention is as recent as the month of May 2021, about 5.5 tons of sandalwood was arrested in a place called Emali in Makueni County. And therefore, the policy framework could be there, yes, but its effectiveness in fighting issues of sandalwood harvesting, especially among community forest, is something that we as key stakeholders need to work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Willis. I think important to highlight is even taking from the introduction from Joyce is why is this product so readily available, such that by the tap of a button, she was able to get information on where to acquire this important tree, and also from the discussion from Willis, it shows that most recent cases indicate that this important tree is still being trafficked. So I think over to our next speaker as we dive into the discussion. I'd like to invite Wycliffe Mauta from who is a research technologist at KEFRI. And Wycliffe, I'd like you to touch on what key activities are these key organizations taking to make sure that sandalwood trafficking is eradicated. For example, case in point for KEFRI, what activities is KEFRI engaging in to curb this trafficking? Wycliffe, are you present? Hello, Wycliffe. Robin, I'm not sure whether Wycliffe is in the meeting.
I'm also not certain, but as we sort Wycliffe's issue out, Mercy, Willis mentioned that we have sandalwood listed under CITES appendix 2, and I'm curious from the work that he's doing, what really is the problem? Is it that enough people don't know about sandalwood? Like, if there are systems and there are structures and there are policies and there's an implementation body that is doing the implementation, why is it such a problem? I don't know, maybe we can have Willis answer that as we wait for Wycliffe to sort out his connectivity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robin. Despite the laws that we have already outlined that are meant to protect this tree, I think in Kenya, if I was to speak about Kenya, sandalwood tree is, first of all, a very lucrative tree because it's used for the production of perfumes and other cosmetics. And therefore, it has a global market. As Joyce mentioned, if you go online, you find people selling sandalwood oil here in Kenya, even abroad. But one of the reasons why sandalwood trafficking continues here in this country is because it is not just a trade that involves the ordinary mwananchi. There are a lot of people within government security agencies that are actually involved in this trade. Our research, recently we were in Samburu trying to trace these networks that enable sandalwood trafficking. And we realized that sandalwood trafficking in Kenya is actually facilitated by state actors. And therefore, the lucrative nature of it, in many cases, sandalwood has been confiscated by the Kenya Forest Services, and this confiscated sandalwood has disappeared from police yards and from police stations and all that, and even from the Kenya Forest Services yards. So the lucrative nature of the product itself, and the fact that people want to make quick money, and most of the sandalwood is actually harvested nowadays from community forests. So these are not protected by the Kenya Forest Services. So these are some of the factors that spur the trafficking of sandalwood, despite the laws and regulations that we have in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Willis. I don't know, Mercy, if Wycliffe is here, but I'm also still curious. We have had the background covered for Kenya. That's Kenya's story. But in this meeting, we have representatives. I see from the comment section in the chat box, we have somebody doing research in America. We also have in this very meeting somebody from South Sudan. I'm curious to know what the situation is, particularly in Uganda and in South Sudan. I'd like to invite Philip Ayuen. Philip Ayuen, if you're here with us, as we wait for Wycliffe to sort out his issue. Philip, what does the situation look like in South Sudan? Kenya has the policy, Kenya has the framework, implementation has been an issue. Willis has told us about why that is an issue. What does it look like in South Sudan? Philip.
Good morning, everyone. If you hear me, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. I'm sorry, my background is quite dark, and I couldn't open. My name is Philip Dodd. I'm a South Sudanese, an environmentalist, and an independent opinion writer, also and a researcher. Environmental issues and economic topic in South Sudan. I'm also executive director and a founder of South Sudan Environmental Advocates. I hold a bachelor degree in environmental science at Kenyatta University. I've been doing environmental campaigner in South Sudan and beyond. On the South Sudan Environmental Advocate Organization that I found is a community-based organization in South Sudan, and it was formed just last year, July, and is based in South Sudan. Based on I don't know whether it will be a little time, but I just wanted to bring a little bit highlight on what I've been researching on sandalwood trafficking in South Sudan and in East Africa as well. Could you able to give me a little time to do so?
Yes, we can, Philip.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
Philip,
that's okay.
Great, Philip.
Yes.
As you prepare.
Yes.
I understand Wycliffe has joined us, but Wycliffe, before Mercy engages you on the question she had, I'd like to quickly ask our friend from Uganda. We have a gentleman here from Uganda. His name is Nelson Obol. Nelson Obol, if you're here with us, please give us a picture of what the policy framework looks like in Uganda to the best of your knowledge, Nelson. Okay, Nelson seems to have a challenge. Is Benson Ongom here? Benson? Okay. I think our panelists are having challenges, some of them particularly the stakeholders we were hoping to engage from Uganda. But as we sort that out in the back end, Mercy, you had a question for Wycliffe. I can see Wycliffe has already joined us.
Yes. Thank you, Robin. Wycliffe, welcome.
I think I'm okay now. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry?
Welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were just mid the discussion, and we're wondering what key activities are these key organizations, for example, KEFRI, taking to curb this trafficking, and what other activities are they taking to make sure that the population of sandalwood goes up to ensure that we control its existence. So I'd like you to take us through that, and also before that, give us a brief introduction of yourself, and then we'll pick up from there. Over to you. Wycliffe? I don't know whether we've lost Wycliffe again.
I think we have. I think we've lost Wycliffe.
But I'm back.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry for the inconvenience. My name is Wycliffe Mauta, as you have heard, and I work with Kenya Forest Research Institute. I'm based in National Forest Product Research at Karura, and I'm handling the issues of sandwood, because we are placed in a way that we are the only people who can be able to identify wood species, not only sandwood. But before I get to that, I would like to mention a few about the sandwood and the issues concerning the sandwood. One, smuggling and trafficking of sandwood is on the rise due to its value of its products, especially the tree, and even the cost that is involved of the product, that is the oil. The whole plant contains essential oil, including even the roots. This puts the tree in a danger of exploitation and destruction. The whole plant and its roots are uprooted, which with the time, if not checked, the plant will be no more. If some things will not be done to stop the smuggling and trafficking, we will not be talking of sandwood in Kenya. People are arrested, taken to the court, but the top smugglers are well organized and well connected. And because of their influence in justice systems, are never arrested. Most of the times, even if they succeed, the brokers and the villagers are arrested. And if they do not succeed, they are exploited. And because of the value they give to the tree, the product, the wood that they sell it as very cheap, because sometimes they talk of 100 shillings per kilo, 200 shillings per kilo. And really that is exploitation. The communities where the sandwood is harvested have little knowledge about the value of the product. That comes from the heartwood of the tree. Therefore, always they are robbed their precious resource. We need to chart the way forward on how we can enforce the laws that can help to stop that illegal activity and educate the communities or the locals where this sandalwood tree is harvested, to know the value involved in this precious wood and how they can do to benefit from the tree. Otherwise, if we just talk of arresting people, taking them to the court and jailing them, that will not help. But if we can be able to involve the community in the issue of sandalwood, then we will be talking of eradicating the smuggling and trafficking. But if the community is not involved, then we will be doing nothing. Actually, we have had a discussion in several forums concerning the sandalwood and how we can be able to stop this vice. But all the people who are involved, they say the only way we can do it, not arresting people, not jailing people, because normally, as I've said, the real people who are behind it are never arrested. We only arrest the locals, and actually that is unfair. But if we can educate people and tell them this resource is very important and we need to preserve it, and the only way we can do it is just to initiate and support the locals to plant the tree. And in that way, they will be able to realize the tree they are dealing with it can help them. And if the policies and the regulation can be set so that they are allowed to harvest it, but they harvest in a sustainable way. They are guided on how to harvest, and they are guided on how to get the market for it. Then in that way, the people themselves in the community can be able to get involved in protecting the smuggling and trafficking of the product. And to me, that's what I feel we need to be discussing. That's the only solution we can come. Okay, as your question, you have said, carefree, we are involved in trying to see whether we can stop this, the trafficking and smuggling. And we do this by working with the Kenya Forest Service, working with the Kenya Wildlife Service, and also the stakeholders who are concerned about it. And normally once the officers arrest the conflicts, that is the smugglers or the people who are involved in stealing or exploiting the plant, they normally bring the samples to KEFRI, Kenya National Forest Products Research. And I'm involved because I'm in charge of the wood anatomy. And that's the technology that can be able to differentiate between a different species to another one, because we use anatomical features, a technology that is recent, has been formulated. And in court, you know that once somebody is arrested, there are ways, the defense counsel, they are very tricky. There is a question that comes in. You are talking of this is sandalwood. How you convince us that this is not another species? And it's very hard for the arresting officers to convince the court about that. So that's where we come in. Through anatomical features, we try to look at the wood inside. Wood is a living, tree is a living thing, and it has some cells, and these cells are formed in a pattern, and each species has this unique pattern. So that is what we look at, and in time we have developed a database in KEFRI for years, and the sandalwood is one of them. So when we look at those patterns of the cells, we compare with what we are, and definitely if it's sandalwood, all the features will match. Then we write a report and we take it to a court. And that report actually is a report that you cannot argue with, because it's a scientific data, or it's a scientific fact that you cannot argue with. So normally once we present that, then we present a strong case that that cannot be that sails through with the court. But if there were no such a thing, it would be very hard for smugglers or the people arrested to be jailed, because of the fact that there are so many woods. One can say it's just other species, but how would you do that? So when we come in, then we make sure that the case is gets through. So that's how we have been coming in, and also our officers, also those who arrest them, they also present a good case and they hand you out. Most of the time, actually, we don't lose the cases in court once they are presented well. But now, as I've said earlier, that may not help us, because the people who are arrested, who are jailed, normally they may not be the people who are key people in smuggling and trafficking. So we need to start way forward to see how we can be able now to devise another method of how we can be able to curb this spice. Otherwise, that's my take in this.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe. I think that is such a good highlight on what exactly is happening from every perspective, and also generally from the key organizations. One thing I've noted is I think the major problem is there is little knowledge by the locals, and also now this is what is driving the unsustainable harvesting. And so I think going forward, the important thing we need to chat is how do we ensure sustainable harvesting. One thing I'd like to go back to is we needed to get some feedback from Uganda, and I'd like to invite Arthur Award to speak on the existing policies within Uganda that are driving sandalwood trafficking. Arthur?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, thank you so much. And in our invitation, we actually thought we'd center our interventions around similar activities that are happening in this part of the country. We have sandalwood here, but it's not that much. Here we're having a similar occurrence, especially with Africana priscilla, that is being trafficked in very many ways. Now, the question you're asking me is to bring in the aspects of legislation and policy that works at three levels. We're having some policies probably that work at the national level, of course, then at the national level, and then also at the district level. Now, what we've witnessed here is that even with very many laws and policies in place, being articulated and of course enforced by different state institutions, we still do realize that the different state institutions here in our country still continue to clash. For example, the National Forest Authority, we have Uganda Revenue Authority, that is actually also a very key player in as far as these products are actually concerned. And then we also have the National Environment Management Authority, which is also NEMA. Now, those are institutions that work at the national level, but we run a decentralized system of governance in which we have districts that have to generate laws or what we call the ordinances in place. Now, because of the ambiguities in the laws that we have with regard to the preservation of these very valuable species of sandalwood, of Africana priscilla, we are all often having clashes, especially when you have some of these dealers coming across from the south, other parts of the country, and then being able to engage in trafficking of some of these products with the guys that they're actually coming from South Sudan. Now, for starters, you know that South Sudan and Northern Uganda are actually coming out of conflict, and they share a lot in common. We've had dealers taking advantage of weak institutions in those areas, weak tax sort of like legislation or actually taken place to continue to undertake trafficking of these valuable species of trees. We've had the president of our country coming up to issue directives, especially with regards to another species which is also endangered, which is the shea nut, and then Africana frizella, which we locally call bayo. But even when those directives are in place, we've had weaknesses with enforcement of the laws and the policies. Now, I had Wycliffe talking about the courts, especially where perpetrators are actually taken to and what happens in the courts. I am afraid to say that that situation seems to be also taking place here, in which, in most cases, courts are not very much punitive. In most cases, we've had the currency points that are being awarded to perpetrators being very low to the extent that it does not inhibit or prohibit whatever is actually happening with regards to trafficking of these species. As a point of fact, we've had these products actually being exported to countries as far as Thailand, Vietnam, India, Dubai, and those other destinations, attracting dollars and dollars. Now, when court impounds them, they're only issuing a currency point of about 30, which is about 250,000 Uganda shillings, against a value of 5,000 US dollars. So what happens? In that case, somebody will choose to pay off the fine and then continue the trade. So we are trying to say that even when we have laws in place, we have policies in place, we have a court system in place, we have state institutions in place, we have actors, different actors, the military and the police also engaged. This still is not helping much. As a point of fact, we found that because of the insurgency that we had, or the political violence that we had in this region, the army actually retraced their ways back to where these pieces of trees actually were. And so you find that even when the value of the commodities go up, it is the army that is involved, working together with other economic actors who engage together to export these products. So I am afraid to say our situation is, we are in a serious dilemma. We have tried here as our trees, we need answers, and Center for African Research to work together to undertake research and of course to engage the leaders, to name and shame some of these military political actors, which we have done. My colleague here, Ben, will also shed more light. He's actually ready to speak, but I think this is what I can say for now, and probably if the moderator will allow, then Ben can also chip in to give more insights.
Yes, thank you so much, Arthur. I think Ngozi has lifted their hand, but then I want to quickly probe a bit further on what you have just said. First of all, it's important to understand that policy is a very difficult topic to delve into because it's layered with litigation and very many conversations surrounding how law operates. But a resounding pattern that I'm realizing, even as we continue talking, Willis talked about it, Mauta has talked about it, all the other researchers from KEFRI and the different stakeholders that we have, I believe, will also touch on it. But I want to quickly probe the understanding that the commonplace people have. I understand, Benson, you are somebody in media in Uganda. And like maybe on top of responding to what Arthur, your colleague, has just passed over to you to add a few comments on, I'd like you to tell us, do you feel that the media where you work is doing enough probably to help people in the streets, in Uganda selling Rolex, or people buying maize on the streets of Kenya? Is the media doing enough to make sure that this message on the importance of sandalwood and why it shouldn't be trafficked is the message passed out better? I don't know if my question is clear, but Arthur, Benson, yes, Benson.
I hope you can get me. I think I've got your question right. I think it works two ways. One, yes or no. The media trying its best. Is it trying to help? I think we have done quite a massive work. I am sort of like a regional manager for one of the top TVs in this country. And we have done stories. And we have done stories that, tell reason why, first of all, people are dealing in Africana frizella, reason why government seems to be very quiet, reason why the district seems to be having the revenue coming in from the monies that they collect from these, trees that they sell and sort of it. We have done quite a good work. The biggest challenge that I think we have in this part of the country or in this country is Whereas we do stories, because ours is to tell the stories and prompt a discussion. We want very many times that when we tell a story about Africana Frisalia, which was, madly being cut from this part of the region, our thought would be, if we tell and expose the people who are much involved in this vice, government could come and try and help. And ideally, because we're trying to open the space, certain things that government don't know, we are telling them in investigative stories, we're telling them in our human interest stories, and nobody seems interested. I can give an example. Together with Our Trees, we Need Answers. I think in 2019, we did an investigative story about the huge impact of deforestation and cutting down on Africana Frisalia, because in Uganda, it is found in northern Uganda and partly West Nile sub-region. And we told these stories, and you know what? There was no feedback, yet we even exposed some of the top government officials. We had names of generals in government, and we brought it forward in these stories that we did. And you expect even Parliament to pick interest. You expect even the Ministry of Environment to pick interest, even at one time, because I remember very well that we pushed as Our Trees, We Need Answers, and we wrote a lot of petition to the office of the speaker and the deputy speaker then, who is now the speaker, and we wanted answers. Remember when the president came in one of the sub-counties in Atiak, the president tried to hint a little about it, but you see, nothing is being done. So I think the media has quite done an impressive work with the challenges that we have, but the reaction has been very poor, very low. And because also when you talk to the authorities that are within this region, they'll tell you their hands are tied. You talk to the regional police commander, they'll tell you, Benson, this is the general, this is who and who in government, this is a minister. And sometimes they find it very hard to deal with such situation. And we have gone ahead as much as possible to make the community understand this impact. But also one of the things I think I want to add on what Arthur did say earlier on, I think we have a huge issue. You hinted something about the local governments that we do have, especially in the Choli sub-region of West Nile, where the councillors now are depending on the allowances. They're literally depending on the revenue that comes from, Africana Frisalia, Chako, and sort of it. So it becomes very hard, because even at the strategic level, even at a regional level, people seem to depend on this thing. But also that tells us widely, because in one of our conversations with the local community that we had as part of our engagement as Our Trees, We Need Answers, we realized deep down in the villages, whereas people appreciate that Africana Frisalia needs to be there, the trees need to be there, but the level of poverty is quite challenging. I remember one of my friends and our friends here, we went to one of the villages in Bulu, and the old mother asked us, sort of challenged us and told us, if we don't cut these trees for Chako, how will our children go to school? So you realize this is interconnected. People will tell you they're very poor. Their only option is they cut these trees, they cut this Africana Frisalia, they sell them. That's how they pay their children at school. So it's sort of interconnected. Everybody seems to be okay and not okay with it. They're okay with it because it's the only option, and it's because of the poverty levels that we have. The district supposed to come with the bylaws and sort of it. The district also seems very reserved on the issue of protecting the environment. I remember last year we went to one of the districts called Agago in northern part of this country, and we are going to the belt of Shianat. And when we went there, it's amazing how a green belt that used to be there 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's no more. And when we went there, we found even the culprits. But we also went with the RDC and went with the local leadership. And the sugar court, and there's nothing. They spoke when we were there. I remember we went with the RDC to the ground. We tried to talk to the community, but guess what? When we left, we've been told different stories. These people have been given leeway to go and pass and do whatever they want to do. So, in other words, what we have is the will. The will from government seems to be very low. Nobody's interested to pick up from where the journalist or the media is trying to pull through and expose. It is very low. Government seems very reserved about it. the policies that we have, the implementation is quite, because we have an environmental unit within the police force, but also some of the commanders of these environmental units, they're the ones that are at the game of all this, what we're talking about. So you find it very challenging. Do a story. I've told my colleagues who are under me, let's do these stories. Let's tell these stories about environment. Let's tell these stories about Africana Frisalia. But at the end of it, the story airs. You receive a few calls from maybe members of parliament, maybe concerned members of the community, and that is it. And everybody seems to be in their space and enjoying their space. So we have a huge problem that we have told the story, but nothing is done about it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Ben. Lucky for us, in this conversation today, we have researchers from KEFRI. We have gentlemen like Bernard, we have Peter Gashier, we have Osiris Gitahe, and we have so many people who are scholars in this field. And before I cue them to let us know, we are talking about the law, we are talking about the stories around trafficking, we are talking about why it's so bad, but nobody is telling us why are people even trafficking this thing. And I believe they are better placed to allow us understand. But even before I bring in maybe Mr. Bernard Kamondo to speak about that, I am seeing there's a hand we have from Ngozi, and in the spirit of when you hold on to a point, sometimes it disappears in the discussion of things. So Ngozi, in a very short and succinct way, please introduce yourself and give the comment that you have or the question that you're asking so that we can proceed with the discussion. Ngozi.
Okay, good morning all. I'm Ngozi Uzoma, and I'll make it brief. Let me not go too far. First of all, to the regional head of GITOC, Mrs. Joyce Kamani, and also the later question is to Mr. Wycliffe Mauta. Yeah, to Mrs. Kimani, since you say you work with ordinary people to find solutions to the organized crime, please, I want to find out, is there any way to protect these local people when they come to give you some information about trafficking and traffickers and trafficking activities? Because those local people, they have real information, and some of them are willing to give if they can be protected. Because I've been on the field, and another to, and do GITOC also involved in human trafficking, tackling of human trafficking? That's what I want to know from her. I'm Mr. Mauta. I just want to know if there is clear bargain in Kenya. I mean, in suggestion of how to, because you made mention that new methods is supposed to be used to tackle trafficking in sandalwood in Kenya. If there is any clear bargain in Kenya, I think those small fish that we are caught could be given clear bargain so that they can name the big financiers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ngozi. And I believe the question I will allow Joyce to answer your question in a few minutes. But then I need us to understand, because you've also touched on trafficking. So a good number of the people I know are still asking, we understand it's an issue, but why is trafficking such a big deal? Now to invite Mr. Bernard Kamondo of KEFRI. Bernard, if you're here with us, please tell us, why is sandalwood such a heavily trafficked tree species? Bernard.
Good morning, Robin.
Good morning.
I think it has been clarified why it is being trafficked. It's because of its value. That's the market is huge. The external market is huge. In some of these countries where it is used, you have 1 billion plus people looking for its products. That's why it's being trafficked. It's just a question of the value.
Okay.
and it has what people are looking for. The oil, I think, is the major driver for the trafficking. Of course, there are local uses, but I don't think that those are driving the trafficking. We are really not the experts in those areas. Our expertise in my group is about propagation. Huh?
Okay.
So I'm quoting also what I believe is the real driver, as I read also and search around. But the world market is huge. But I would really like to clarify that, as we mentioned, Sandalwood is a group of many species. And for us, we are talking about the East African sandalwood, which is being trafficked as a replacement, as an alternative for other sandalwoods, which are also facing exploitation where they are growing in the Asian countries. I think I hear the most valuable is the true sandalwood, the Indian sandalwood, Santalum alba. I think the market demands more than what can be supplied, and the East African sandalwood, which is not sandalwood, has the same ingredients, maybe not at the same quality, but good in terms of as a substitute. And maybe people thought it was easy to get a while ago. I hope I have been clear.
Yes, you have been. It's trafficked because of its oil and the immense value that it has in markets that are predominantly not within East Africa. And I think ideally because the reason why it's trafficked mostly from this place is because those other places have also depleted their populations. I believe that's the gist of what I got. I'd like to invite Mercy. I don't know if we have comments that we can read.
So
before we have Joyce answer Ngozi's question.
Interesting. So there is a really interesting discussion on the chat section, and a few of the comments that I have noted. Willis notes that in most cases in Kenya, drivers of these trucks carrying sandalwood are the ones who are arrested, and so they're not even aware who are the owners of this of the sandalwood. Also, Diana Moshoge notes that it is important to think of alternative means of livelihood for those harvesting sandalwood. And so as Wycliffe had said, the locals are not aware of the importance of this sandalwood. So they're just harvesting and they don't know its value. The people who are at the end of the chain are the ones who are getting the most value from this tree. And so I think we need to think about alternative ways of empowering these locals, so that they can sustainably harvest or shift towards another way of sustaining their livelihoods. Another point that I've noted in the chat section is Willis has also noted that I think to add on the point from Wycliffe, he states that community education on local uses of sandalwood is also key. In many cases, sandalwood is used to treat many ailments and also to make herbal tea. I think apart from its use, this essential use of this essential oil in making of fragrances, it is also noted that it is used as a medicinal plant. So I think going forward from this discussion, we need to chart our way on, I think what we need to really highlight to our audience is what sustainable way can we give can we give locals for harvesting of this tree? So I think another point that we have not touched on is these roots. Since it has a global market, and locally within the East African region, there seems to be existing routes for the trafficking of this tree. And so I'd like Robin to guide us on the response.
Sorry, the response for.
I think we'd like to get a response on the routes of the trafficking of this sandalwood, especially in the East African region. There seems to be a, yes.
Okay, very well. I'd like to, before I direct that question to somebody who is here with us, I'd like us to go back to Ngozi's question after all that feedback, and then we can have Joyce. Joyce, you are asked if GI has an arrangement where you protect or provide protection for people who will be key informants against transnational organized crimes such as the trafficking of sandalwood. And if, for example, you're aware of any provisions for plea bargains, I think that's also a question I will direct to Willis Okumu. If there are concessions for plea bargains, for instance, if somebody is caught, is there a way that they can be used to corroborate an investigation so that the bigger people within the chain are caught in exchange for maybe reduced jail terms, reduced fines, which I believe is the essence of a plea bargain? So Joyce.
Thank you so much, Ngozi. When it comes to protection of whistleblowers, we work a lot with partners on the ground, but we also believe in working with the local authorities. These governments are the ones who are mandated to protect us. But that notwithstanding, we have our own channels where you can be able to share your investigations or to share information. We have like not an anonymous, we have our email address, the main email address. I will drop it later, but we've used it to get information and to get different people sharing sensitive information on that email. It is mostly handled by our communication team and our panels, like we have experts in different fields. So our main approach to this is because we believe in protecting the people who are giving us information, but we believe that the governments in the countries, for example, are better placed. The DCIs, the police who are working there, and Interpol. So we work closely with them in issues regarding to protection of the people. On the other side, on the flip side, however, it means that if we are working with you in a different project, if you feel like your security is at risk, we've had instances where we have to evacuate and repatriate people in different parts of the world when perhaps what they were doing deemed dangerous. And if it was a project under us, we however advocate that in case we feel like something is really going to put you in harm's way, our approach would be, don't approach it unless you are sure that your security is guaranteed. We believe that security comes first in terms of anything that we handle. We have had instances, for example, in East Africa, where we had to use information that we came from different stakeholders, that we got from different sources per se. And how we do it is either we do, in our report, we rarely mention the names of the people who have done that report as a way of protecting them. Basically because we've had people go to court and sue individuals in one or two instances. So we thought that in case somebody gives us reports or somebody writes for us information, it is better placed if we put it like the information is from GI and not from an individual like Robin, in case the law or in case the people in the organized crime decide to come for the person. they can't come for they come for the organization, not for the individual. So that's one of the ways we seek in protecting our people. On terms of plea bargain, I am not aware of any. I think Willis will help me there, but I'm not aware of any plea bargain that we've entered as both GI and ENACT, who we work closely with. But we are of the firm belief that we do not negotiate with people involved in crime, basically because it will affect your integrity and number. Coming back from a personal opinion too, I feel like it doesn't, in most cases, I feel like it doesn't, it will also tarnish your credibility even as an organization. These are ways it's going to be twisted, especially in the wake of both social and mainstream media. So we have not approached a little bit more research on that, but it's not part of what we do as the Resilience Fund. I hope I've answered you, Ngozi. Thank you.
Yes, I believe you have. I don't know, Willis, for those of us who do not maybe understand what the language of plea bargaining is, I don't know, maybe from a policy, as a policy fellow, whether you can help us gauge if it's even something that can be done or can be offered up to law agencies that are involved in the implementation of these laws. Willis?
Yes, thank you, Robin. I think in Kenya, plea bargaining is part of the prosecutorial infrastructure that exists within the Director of Public Prosecutions. Plea bargaining basically means that somebody who is accused agrees with the DPP to share more information, more incriminating information that enables the state to prosecute the bigger fish, perhaps in the case of Sandalwood, then that would mean perhaps somebody who is in the transport chain of the business is actually given a lesser sentence so that they can be able to give information that will enable prosecution of maybe the owner of the cargo of the Sandalwood itself. I have not seen a case like that in Kenya in regard to Sandalwood. But what I can talk about is a case I remember from a recent discussion we had with some of the forest officers. There was a case of a gentleman who called one of the forest people in Samburu County and said that, you know, we have information that you guys are on target because you are preventing us from harvesting sandalwood, and through that process, he enabled the security agencies to actually arrest some of the guys that had been really harvesting sandalwood across most of Samburu County community forest. In this case, the information that he gave, because he used to, we realized that sandalwood traffickers that were operating in Samburu had actually had an association, you know, where they would contribute money when any of them is arrested. They would contribute money to be able to pay local community people to harvest sandalwood. And therefore, it shows you that there's a level of organization in this criminal network that sustains the harvesting itself. So out of the process of people giving information, people volunteering information to security agencies and investigative agencies, if you look at the recent 2010 data in the courts in Samburu, you realize that people have been sentenced to jail. There have been vehicles even at Maralal police station that have been confiscated to the state because they were found carrying sandalwood. And most of these are nowadays high-end Prados and Toyota Land Cruisers that now the sandalwood traffickers are using at the moment. So the law could be able to help us, but ultimately, as some of my colleagues from KEFRI said, I think we as stakeholders need to be very keen in looking at how to help communities to sustainably harvest sandalwood, because the law could be there, but it may not be able to do so much, because harvesting actually starts at the community level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Willis, for that apt description and explanation about the intricacies of the law when it comes to things like plea bargains and the different opportunities that are available for such things to occur. Fortunately for us, we will be having, this is one This is one of the first stakeholders meetings. We'll be having more much later, and we'll be engaging colleagues from Kenya Wildlife Service, which I believe is legally mandated in Kenya to carry out a lot of the seizing and the interpretation of what the law means when it comes to, of course, in conjunction with different people from other state departments. We'll be carrying out a lot more inquisitions on the whole issue of the legalities and the legal implications of being caught, jail terms, and things like that. But to run through the people who have joined us as we have started and continued, we started by having a background discussion on why sandalwood is such an important tree to the East African ecosystem. We went ahead to talk about what the different policy implications are in the region. So we talked about what it means in Uganda, what it means in Kenya. We are hoping to have our gentleman from South Sudan help us understand what the framework looks like and the work that they are doing in South Sudan. But quickly right now, I want to take a few minutes to engage the gentleman from Kefri. So we are saying that because sandalwood is such an... I'm sorry, somebody is... We're saying that because sandalwood is such an important tree, it is important for common people like myself and people who own farms, acres of land, or maybe small pieces of land. It is important for us to understand the need to plant it. And so I want to veer the discussion in a few minutes towards how do we propagate. I understand propagation is one of the interventions against, the depleting populations of sandalwood. And I'd like to now invite Mr. Bernard Kamondo, and I don't know if Peter Gashier is here with us, also as well as Osiris Gitahe. Let us talk us through what it means to propagate. What is the science of propagation? Why is it important? And what are the different things that you are doing in the field so that enough people or more people can warm up to the idea of the propagation of sandalwood? Mr. Bernard, if you're here with us, please proceed.
Robin, thank you. I'll just introduce the issue because the propagation expert is Mr. Giavie. But the issue behind really propagation is the bigger idea of domestication. That despite that we don't want the sandalwood to be trafficked, we should also be able to see it as an opportunity for even enhancing livelihoods, even transforming people's lives, even going to the issues of earning the country tremendous income, not by exploiting the little resource in the world, because that cannot make anything, but seeing the opportunity of providing stocks of sandalwood in a sustainable way through farming, through cultivation of the tree, just as we do with the tea. Tea also was once a forest and wild plant that has been domesticated and moved to leverage high economic gains for even Kenya. So that is the general idea of we have in Kefri, that in terms of if we could propagate these species, we would achieve several things. We would protect what is in the wild by making it much, much easier to access what is being cultivated, and nobody would struggle to go and take all those risks of trying to cut what is in the wild. So we would protect what is in the wild, and again, those involved in the cultivation and in the whole value chain, from cultivation all the way to processing and marketing, would have a profitable investment opportunity. So that's in a nutshell what is motivating propagation, the bigger picture of domestication, the bigger picture of taming the tree and bringing it on farm and growing it just like any other crop. Anytime you talk about domestication, the first thing you have to sort out is propagation. And because if you don't propagate, if there is no way of propagating, then there is no chance of domestication. When the presidential ban was put in place, there were several initiatives that were supposed to go on, and KEFRI was given the mandate to do the research work and to lead on the issue of propagation. Is there an opportunity of domestication? Is there an opportunity of domesticating this tree? While other people had, other organizations had different mandates, so that the whole thing has a holistic approach. So we tried to collect seed and propagate the seed, and we realized that the seed had issues. It was not germinating easily, and we had to sort out that, and we were able through research to prescribe a protocol for handling, collecting, handling, and germinating seed. So that is sorted out. Once you are able to sort that one out, then the question arises, is the seed available? And at the moment, the constraint is that the only available seed is the seed that is in the wild. And the research we have undertaken, we have shown that it has shown that Sandalwood is a shy seeder. It doesn't seed profusely. There are years, periods where it seeds profusely, but most of the time, most of the years, it is seeding sparsely. So that's a challenge, and then it would mean that the solution would be to collect seed. One of the solutions is to collect seed when there is this periods of massive seeding, and then store the seed. Unfortunately, the research we have undertaken has shown that you can only store seed for 1 year. Beyond 1 year, the germination just drops, and it is not meaningful to depend on seed that has been stored for more than 1 year. But within 1 year, you can store the seed. It means then that the solution for providing seed will be in establishing of seed sources, and the KEFRI is in the process of establishing seed stands. But the amount of seed we will require will be more. So there's an opportunity then to partner with local people or organizations or networks for establishing several seed sources, so that the amount of seed available to support the domestication process is a lot. Then once you germinate the seed, then you have to push the seedling through the process of the nursery. And that is where I would like to bring in our propagation expert, Mr. Giavi. Robin, if it's okay with you, then Giavi can take over and maybe provide some few insights into that.
Yes, of course. So this conversation, Mr. Giavi and Mr. Bernard, and ultimately everybody joining in, is scheduled to end in the next 5 minutes. I think in the interest of keeping the time we promised, I'd invite Mr. Giavi to give us, an answer in a very succinct way. Mr. Giavi.
How are you, everyone? I'm Giavi from Kefri, and doing some research on sandalwood. And to start with, sandalwood is not an ordinary plant like the trees that you are used to grow, where you just go and collect the seeds, take it to the nursery and then to the field. Sandalwood is a semi-parasite throughout its life cycle. That's from seedling all the way to the period when it's harvested. So it has to have some appropriate plant species other than itself, where to have to attach and obtain some of the essential nutrients. So the work that we have been doing in Kefri, we have been screening several plant species which are found to get grown together with the series. And so far, we have a list of different tree species. Some are shrubs, some are herbs, which are found in semi-humid areas, another in semi-arid areas. And this work which I've done, although we have not concluded, in fact, we are almost at the start, but we have some technologies that we can be able to share with the stakeholders, communities, and other stakeholders that are interested in producing sandalwoods. In a nutshell, I can say we have some information already that we can share, but we are still developing that, refining that technology. And I think with the time, as years go, we are going to refine this technology and it will be available to a much wider audience who will be interested in producing seedlings of sandalwood in their nurseries and also in the field. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giavi. And I realize that we are running out of time. And so at this point, I'd like to invite our speakers to give us closing remarks. Tell us from this discussion, what holes are existing and how do we chart our way forward? Just very briefly, 30 seconds. And so I'd like to start with Nelson Obol. Please give us your closing remarks. As we wait on Nelson, I'd like Benson to prepare himself. Benson, could you speak as we wait? It seems we are having some technical glitch, but as we wait on the two speakers, I'd also like to welcome Wycliffe Mauta to give us closing remarks and perhaps speak on behalf of Kefri. Wycliffe, over to you.
Yeah, I think my closing remarks will just be based on the two questions that were asked by gentlemen. That one is concerning the protection of the people who are giving important information about the smugglers. and the traffickers. And as you may know, Samburu is a hot quake. It's a hot spot for sandalwood issues. And there's a time that the community were brought together by the judge who is in charge of the Marara court. And actually, I happened also to be there. And we chatted the way to see how we can stop this, this trafficking and smuggling. And there's a point that which came in, which I would like to share also with you, because it's concerning the question that was asked. And we said that we agreed that the judge who approaches in different way, you'll be using the brokers and the villagers who have been arrested. And they well know those are not the ones who are behind the trafficking and the smuggling. So it was discussed that if they are willing, they will be invited to become the state witnesses. And they pinpoint who are behind what they are doing. And immediately they give that information, they will be, their case will be set aside. And then the real conflict, the smugglers will be brought to books, but the brokers and the villagers become state witnesses. And this, we left it to be discussed in a more elaborate way. And the brokers and the villagers to be given protection in case one provides such information. The second one is how can we stop these fights? One way is involving the community, although this will involve multi-sectoral approach, because there are so many people who will be involved. One, change of policy, change of laws, because we know even if people are allowed to harvest the sandalwood locals sustainably, still the laws will be there. You never know between the one who is smuggling and who is doing it rightly. So that has to be put clearly in place, so that those who are allowed to do that, they are given license. In case one is caught, he can produce the license. So that can differentiate between the smuggler, the trafficker, and the people who are rightly allowed to do that. So that's the only way we can approach this matter in a better way. And as I said, other than court issues, because we are dealing, prosecuting the wrong people.
Thank you so much, Wycliffe, for your closing remarks. I'd like to welcome Giade. Sorry, I'd like to welcome Bernard Kamondo to also give his closing remarks. Very briefly, kindly.
Yes, my closing remarks is sandalwood is gold. Very difficult to keep away from people from gold, but let's also focus on the opportunity it presents in terms of changing the livelihoods of our people, but it must be in a sustainable way through domestication. And we hope that as we continue refining technology, that we will also be disseminating the technology as it is. It might be not well packaged right now, not the best. We have a lot of improvements to do, but we hope then we can start growing the sandalwood with the with the technology as it is now, as we improve.
Thank you, Bernard. That is very insightful. Over to Nelson. I had called upon Nelson. Nelson, can you hear me? Okay, we seem to have lost Nelson, and so I'd like to invite Arthur Award. Kindly give us your closing remarks. What is the way forward in curbing sandalwood trafficking? Arthur?
I believe Arthur left.
Okay. Next, I'd like to invite Philip from South Sudan. Please give us your closing remarks. Philip, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't think that whether I will give a closing remark because I've not explained the part of the sandalwood in South Sudan, and I don't think it's now time is over. Maybe unless you shoulder for the next meeting, because the side of the history for sandalwood in South Sudan was not here before. I did not speak. I was just introducing myself, and that was not the sandalwood story in South Sudan. And I thought I would be given an opportunity to tell the side of the story and then give a closing remark. Otherwise, thank you for inviting me. I'll still continue advocating. That's the only thing that I can say. Advocating for sandalwood and other environmental issues.
Okay, thank you. I think important to note is this is an ongoing discussion, and so we can always engage on social media platforms, and also reach out to Unganisha Cultures, engage us on this discussion, and we will be able to chart our way forward. Thank you so much, Philip. I'd like to welcome Willis Okumu to give us his conclusion.
Yes, thank you, Mercy. Just two things. Sandalwood in most of northern Kenya is seen as a cash crop. And that means that communities derive their sources of livelihood. They survive by harvesting and selling it to brokers and the people that really use it to make the sandalwood oil. And therefore, there's an opportunity there, as my colleagues from KEFRI have said, to engage, especially the county governments and even the national government, to be able to do public education, but also to find ways of having a sustainable harvesting of sandalwood so that communities can benefit. One thing that is clear is that communities are part of the sandalwood trafficking value chain, but they are getting probably just 1/10 of its value, because most of it goes to the owners of the trafficking value chain. And therefore, communities are really being exploited. So if we can recognize sandalwood as a cash crop, as something that communities can be able to benefit, as one of my colleagues talked about tea and the way tea was domesticated, then perhaps we can find a solution that would include the communities themselves. The other point is in regards to the security agencies. For a long time, there have been many cases of sandalwood being trafficked and successfully to places like Uganda when there was a factory there. In recent times, I think in 2020, the government, I think, has tried. There have been cases, even if you look at the newspapers, of multi-agency teams arresting sandalwood, like the one I mentioned in Mali. So law enforcement should continue to be able to stem this network and to break the networks that basically facilitate the exploitation of communities through sandalwood trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Willis. I realize we are running out of time. I'd like to invite my co-moderator, Robin, to take over from here.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Thank you so much, all the ladies and gentlemen attending this live feed. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Thank you to our conveners, Unganisha, and our sponsors, GI. Thank you so much to the colleagues at KEFRI, the gentleman from South Sudan, the great work that you're doing in South Sudan to build the proficiencies of climate action, from our friends from Northern Uganda and the organization you're running. Really, this, as Mercy had said, is a continuing conversation. This is the first stakeholders meeting in an array and series of many others that are to come. And we are looking forward to delve deeper. The next time we will be talking to still stakeholders from South Sudan, stakeholders from Uganda, the wider region, as well as implementation organizations such as the Kenya Wildlife Service. And really, we are hopeful that the work we are trying to do will help us get an understanding of the importance of climate action and how sandalwood can be used to build that importance and also the propagation. Remember, the conversation is continuing live you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on all other social media platforms at Unganisha Cultures. You can find also follow GI Talk. It's available on all platforms and all the different stakeholders who are apparent and present here. But then from us as a team, we would like to say we have to love you all and we have to also live. So from us, it's thank you so much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.